You're listening to Matters of Engagement, a podcast examining issues at the intersection of health, healthcare, and society. I'm Jennifer Johannesson.
And I'm Emily Nicholas Angle.
This is the second episode in a three-part series on patient partner acknowledgement, produced in collaboration with the Siden Research Team, located at the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute in Vancouver.
In our last episode, we explored why it's so hard to find evidence of patient partnership in research, and why that matters.
In this episode, we're going inside the partnership itself. We'll hear from the people doing the work, what it's like to be embedded in a research team, and what they're learning along the way. And we'll also be exploring something wonderfully meta, patient partners doing research about patient partners in research. What does that reveal about power, expertise, and who gets to be a researcher?
Let's start with how Candice Barrans, a patient partner in the Siden lab, found her way into this work.
I have a son who has a genetic condition. He has Down syndrome. I found out early that he was very high likely going to have Down syndrome. And I had this fleet of moms with all kinds of conditions that called me up and said, don't worry, you're going to find your voice. You're going to find your space to advocate for your son, and everything's going to be fine.
So Candice was ready to do just that. Advocate for improvement of a system full of service gaps, inequities, and barriers. She could already see how the world wasn't set up to welcome or even accommodate her son. Many parents turned to social media, but that wasn't Candice's style.
I started looking at all the local resource pages, and I found an advertisement for a journal club. It was a parent journal club where you were going to read research articles and discuss them from a parent lens.
It was through the journal club that Candice developed a critical eye on what she was reading, noting that the parent voice was simply absent.
As a parent, I heard what the researchers and clinicians were saying, and I felt like, yeah, but that's not it. Like, there's something missing, or like there's making an assumption about parents and what our opinions were, and I just didn't feel like there was a parent in the room to answer those assumptions.
Candice decided to get more directly involved in research. But as she continued to ask around, she kept running into the same problem.
My friends who were in research at the university were like, well, I know that there are parents involved, but I just don't know how they get involved in what they do. Then when I was trying to sell myself and be like, hey, I can be involved, I can help, they were like, well, that's great, but there's not a whole lot of research on or conclusive evidence on how parent partners contribute, and like if it really provides better research.
Candice eventually found the Siden Lab, which had an established history of partnering with parents and was, in fact, looking for someone to join the team.
And they said, yeah, actually, we need a parent. One of our parents is graduating out. Their child is becoming an adult. But we'd love to have you fill that role. So that's how I came onto the Siden Research Team.
So Candice brought with her not only the interest and energy to contribute to the ongoing work of the Siden Lab, but she also brought some lingering questions about how patient or parent partnership is perceived in other research teams and in the literature she'd been reading. Her curiosity fit right into the ethos of the lab, and together the team started to investigate just exactly how existing literature accounted for the contributions of patient and parent partners.
And that's where the scoping review comes in. It's the groundwork, as Candice puts it.
So like the real groundwork step was like, okay, well, first we need to just look, like what research is out there. Does it actually improve anything? Then we got to the point, was exactly where the student got, is we can't even find it. Our titles are not consistent. The terms used to capture this are not consistent. How parents are involved is vastly different across the spectrum, which can impact how effective they can be in helping and producing, quote unquote, good research. So I think the interest I had in this was in my whole process of trying to find a way to fit into the research. I also needed to help answer the question of how can I add value? What is it about me being present in the room that adds value? I find like the scoping review is the step one, is are parents being involved? What are they providing? Are they being consulted? What is their level of engagement?
So you'll notice frequent use of the word embedded. Candice is an embedded parent partner. Colleen Pollock, we heard from her in the last episode, she's an embedded research librarian. But what does that actually mean?
Well, it's more than just a fancy title. In the Siden Lab, being embedded means actually becoming part of the research staff, receiving not honorariums, but salaries, with each person bringing their unique experiences, expertise, and perspectives to the work as equally valued contributors. Candice breaks it down from her perspective.
So in research, we have this very clear understanding that like this is a researcher. And then there's even this special place that people hold for clinician researchers or nurse research, practicing healthcare providers that are also researchers, right? So they're not necessarily called embedded, but it's identified that they have this other role that's outside of just the academia sphere. But when we come to things that are usually on consulting services like statisticians, librarians, parents, patients, there's this idea that they're not researchers. They have another job, and research is not that job. And we're just going to go and consult them for that other job that they do. It not just acknowledges that all of these people have a role that's more than just a consultation, it's respecting that the researchers can't always identify all the ways in which these other experts or these people that have expertise in other fields can impact the research. It's saying, I can't see how they could get in the way of the research, so I'm going to keep them in the room and let's see what we can get from this situation.
So being embedded means being invested. And Anne-Mette Hermansen, the team's research coordinator, explains how this played out structurally in their team. She describes the early days, before Colleen Pollock joined their team as an embedded research librarian.
Before Colleen, we would consult in sort of the more traditional way with librarians. So basically, we have a research question or we have a research topic that we're interested in, and we would have a meeting, maybe a few meetings with librarian who has a lot of skill in search strategies and sort of finding information and doing all the great things that librarians do, but it would be on a consultation basis. So it would sort of be quite limited, and half of it would probably be to try for that librarian to try and enable the research team to do some of these things on their own. And so the difference in then having Colleen come on board and be an embedded research librarian is really the kind of investment in the project. So it's very different when you come up with a project together and everybody has like some measure of investment into that project, because it's not my project and I need some advice from Colleen. It's actually Colleen's project too. And I think that makes a world of difference for a few reasons. One of them being that research takes time. And so you need that sort of more long-term investment in wanting to see the research project realized or move forward.
The same model extended to parent partners.
And that was such a good experience that we thought about doing that the same way with a parent partner. And this was not in an effort to design and complete this specific project, but that was actually a structural idea of that our research team would include researchers, students, Dr. Hal Seidens as a principal investigator on a lot of projects, librarian as an embedded research team member, and a parent partner as an embedded research team member.
Gabriel Zamma, she goes by Gabby, joined the team as a student research assistant and describes what this looked like in practice.
I think with Candice, these sort of things I didn't actually fully consider them because of how I view her as someone as an integrated member of our research team, and that's how she was always introduced to me. It's Candice first, and then Candice is also a patient partner and a member of our research team. Once I started hearing about maybe these extra additional difficulties that patient partners experience in the research world, then it was kind of like a light bulb went off. Not every lab is like this. Like, not every patient partner is going to be integrated in this way. Not every patient partner is going to be accepted and embedded into their project in the same way that Candice is.
There's something powerful about that framing, Candice first. It reminds us of something Candice shared about her first conference with the team.
When I was first invited to my first conference, he was introducing me to a group of people that he was talking with. And he said, "This is Candice Barrans. She used to be a lab supervisor and is now our parent partner." And I really appreciated that, because it wasn't like, here's a mom that helps us. It's like, here's this whole person that's had a life. And now they're dedicating time to helping us in this research. That really hit me. And it was such a small moment. And I appreciated it.
So what does embedded partnership actually look like day to day? Well, let's start with the screening process for the scoping review. Remember that they're reviewing thousands of articles. The process has multiple stages.
So we have title and abstract screening, where someone just takes a glimpse at an article and says, maybe there could be engagement here. And then we'll pass it along. And the next person that takes that paper is me. And I read through it in heavy details.
Gabby's reviewed around 1,100 articles at this point, and Candice is quickly catching up. Actually, at the time of this recording, Candice's count is 777. There's a bit of a friendly competition about who's ahead.
So I like to hold the champion that I had the most title and abstract screens done by like a couple thousand. I went away on mat leave, so she got a little heads up, but then she went away for a medical situation. So then I got a little bit of a head start, and in the end, she's still ahead. So we'll get there.
The real complexity comes in what they're actually doing with these articles.
We had this two-reviewer sort of design, where two people were looking at articles side by side, and we would vote yes or no on them. So whether or not we were going to include them, whether or not there was ample engagement or recognition to move them along to the next stage and include them in our review. And sometimes there would be disagreements. So one person would say yes and one person would say no. They weren't like arguments by any means. It was just one person believed that there was enough engagement to sort of pass the article along, and someone else said, no, maybe not enough.
And this is where Candice's perspective as a parent partner became crucial.
Candice had a lot of really interesting things to say about, well, maybe they didn't want acknowledgement here. Like, there is clearly engagement, and yes, maybe they're not fully acknowledged, but we know there's engagement here. And she was able to bring a different sort of perspective, an important one that held a lot of weight and was very, I think, beneficial for me as a trainee.
What Gabby and Candice are highlighting is something that researchers might not consider, that not all patient partners actually want their names on publications.
For particularly sensitive subjects or studies, maybe where there is a little bit more stigma or even a lot of stigma, parents and patients can be really meaningfully engaged, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they want their name across a study.
This complicates the whole question of recognition. It's not just about whether patient partners are being acknowledged. It's also about whether they want to be, and on what terms.
The truth is that when you put your name on something, identifying as someone with lived experience, you're essentially outing yourself, revealing deeply personal and typically private information that no one else on the team is required to do. This can, and should, complicate assumptions about whether patients or parents want recognition through authorship.
Okay, back to Candice's role. We've talked a lot about how patient or parent partners bring a unique and important perspective to the work, but many, including Candice, are not just drawing on their own experiences exclusively. They're part of a wider community and have had lots of exposure to a diverse array of experiences.
I think that it's really important to remember that as a parent, yes, I have a very limited scope as to like this particular things that my kid is experienced, but I also live within a community that I see disability more. Uh, I interact with disability more. I interact with moms of children with disability more because it's just the space that I'm in. I also think that my eyes and ears are a little bit more open to a lot of different perspectives within that disability community by either including or understanding how they're excluded, like either hearing stories of people that have faced certain things or knowing that I have never heard of a kid that's been able to do something or never been offered an opportunity.
So while Candice obviously doesn't speak for everyone, her entire information ecosystem shifted to encompass a broader community. So she has a lot to share beyond just her own experience.
So we've talked a bit about how this team includes patient partners doing research about patient partners in research. It's pretty cool being able to reflect on your own role in this way. As the parent partner, Candice reflects on what she's gained from this experience.
I'm happy that I'm working on it and I am getting so much from it. And I think that that's important to say because there are times in this where we're looking through and there's scoping reviews that are done about parent engagement. And the authors specifically say, you know, we didn't involve a parent because in the scoping review. And I'm assuming that they didn't maybe think that there was value to a parent or that a parent could offer insight that could maybe be constructive. Maybe that's an assumption. But here to say that as a parent in the scoping review, I felt like I've learned a lot and I've been empowered to understand research in a better way. And it's given me a window into what is being researched about my community, which has been really interesting. And so to say that it's on my end, it's been very worthwhile experience.
An interesting moment came when the team tried to publish the first version of a commentary about their findings. They were writing about how researchers need to clearly describe patient-partner contributions, and then they got feedback on their own paper.
We had these general, very big ideas on sort of like structurally what needs to happen within research in order to make this more visible and more. And we started writing it, and Candice was involved in writing, and I read it, and it was great, and we sent it off, and then it came back for review, and it was like, we can't actually, it's not clear what your patient partner did. And we're like, oh no.
They fell into the very trap they were writing about.
It's like, you need to be very clear about what your patient partner is doing. They need to be fully acknowledged. And this is important too if you're ever going to replicate something with research. It needs to be very explicit, like your methods need to be very clear. The level of engagement of different, whether that's research participants or research partners too. It should be very, very clear.
Yeah, this is harder than it sounds, and a lot more nuanced. When we followed up with Candice, she described how one of the reviewers of the paper asked her how participating in the scoping review empowered her, as though the one activity would be life-changing.
Yeah, in reality, it was a single step. I mean, a big one, mind you, but a single one in a longer journey that helped Candice develop more knowledge and more confidence over time. And she brought that confidence into her advocacy and also into her ongoing work with the lab. As you can imagine, this is very hard to convey in the kinds of short word counts teams are expected to produce for a commentary piece. Gabby describes the practical constraints.
There are certain checklists and certain tools that you can use as a sort of guide to guide your reporting. There are constraints that you have to follow with an editorial piece. You only have so much space and so many words. You can only include so much information, and that can be tricky.
Yeah, and then there's the language itself.
What term are we going to use? Are we going to use partner? Are we going to use patient partner, family partner? Are we just going to use parent? Are we going to use embedded parent research team member? There were so many different options we had And it wasn't the flow. We were using kind of all of them at one point, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Gabby notes that this is exactly what they're studying. The inconsistency and terminology makes everything harder to find and understand. It's not just an abstract problem. It's one they're living through in real time.
So what is the team taking away from this experience? Well, Gabby, as a student researcher, has been profoundly shaped by this work. She's thinking beyond healthcare into education and even other fields.
I think that these sort of ideas are ones I'm going to take with me for a really long time. I have no plans on leaving the engagement area of research or patient-oriented research in any way. But I am curious how this type of research can be more consistently incorporated into social sciences research. How can we incorporate families and parents into child psychology research? How can we incorporate learners' experiences into education research too, rather than just focusing on sort of assessments and outcomes?
Anne-Mette frames this as an ongoing question that patient and parent partners themselves should answer.
I think there is some assumption that patient partners, because they have lived experience within whatever research area topic we're talking about, they just have sort of an innate vested interest in being part of this in any one way. But I think it's worth asking, and particularly asking patient partners themselves, well, do they have a vested interest in being part of this work? How do they want to be part of this work? And if they're part of this work, does it matter to them if they're credited and how they're credited?
The team is still working through the thousands of articles, still documenting patterns of recognition and invisibility, and still grappling with terminology and searchability. What's become really clear is that this isn't just a study about research. It's a model of research partnership itself.
I really have a very high standard in my eyes now for what this should look like if you're going to do it right and meaningfully, or what it could look like.
In our next episode, we'll explore what this research might mean for the future, and how these findings could shape recognition practices, search strategies, and ultimately, the way research teams work together.
Thank you to Candice Barrans, Anne-Mette Hermansen, and Gabriel Zamma for participating in this episode.
This episode was written and produced by Jennifer Johannesson and Emily Nicholas Engel in collaboration with the Siden Research Team. The Siden Research Team is supported by Canuck Place Children's Hospice and the Child Bright Research Network, and is located at the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute in Vancouver. The Rapid Scoping Review is supported by the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute and Brain Behavior and Development. For a full transcript and for more information, please visit mattersofengagement.com.